Brothers and sisters of Africa, listen well. For too long, Washington and Paris robbed our gold, our uranium, our dignity. They called it trade, but it was theft. They called it partnership, but it was slavery in disguise. Today, from the heart of Burkina Faso, a new fire is burning. I, Ibrahim Traoré, declare before heaven and earth, we will never kneel again. America trembles, France shakes, for the Sahel Alliance has risen. This is the spirit of Thomas Sankara reborn. This is Africa unchained, and no empire will silence us again. For centuries, Africa's riches built the skyscrapers of New York and the palaces of Paris. Gold from Ghana, uranium from Niger, cocoa from Ivory Coast, oil from Nigeria flowed outward to the west, while African children went hungry. This was not trade, it was plunder disguised as progress. It was colonialism with new clothes. But in the dusty streets of Ouagadougou, a different story is being written. Burkina Faso, under the fearless leadership of Captain Ibrahim Traoré, has declared that independence is not a flag. Independence is control of our own resources. He has told America and France in no uncertain terms, Africa is not your warehouse, not your mine, not your colony. The West panics. Paris trembles as Niger blocks uranium. Washington fumes as Burkina Faso nationalizes gold. Across Africa, 10 nations now echo this call, standing against exploitation, standing for dignity. This is not merely African politics. This is the dawn of a new geopolitics of Africa. At the center stands Burkina Faso, a small nation with a mighty voice, carrying forward the dream of Thomas Sankara and uniting a continent long divided. In the heart of West Africa, a spark has become a wildfire. Burkina Faso, long dismissed as a poor, landlocked nation, has risen to the forefront of history. Under the command of Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the young soldier turned leader, Ouagadougou has become the beating drum of a continental revolution. For decades, the wealth of Burkina Faso flowed outward. Its cotton fields clothed Europe, its gold enriched America. Yet its own people remained poor. In Washington, Burkina Faso was nothing more than a pawn. In Paris, nothing more than a colony without chains. That illusion has shattered. In a historic move, Traoré nationalized portions of the gold sector, ordering that the nation's treasures no longer be shipped raw to foreign vaults. Instead, he demanded refining at home, wealth kept in African banks, reserves held by Africans, not dictated by the dollar or the euro. It was not just policy, it was defiance. And the world heard it. The response from Washington was swift. American officials warned of instability. Media outlets labeled Traoré a dictator. Whispers of sanctions filled the air. France, losing its grip on West Africa, launched campaigns of disinformation, hoping to portray Burkina Faso as reckless, ungovernable, unworthy of global respect. But in the streets of Ouagadougou, the people answered louder than any propaganda. Tens of thousands gathered waving flags of Burkina Faso, chanting the names of Sankara and Traoré. Mothers brought their children, elders raised their hands to the sky. Young men and women vowed to defend their land with their lives. In that moment, the people themselves became the shield, the living barricade between their leader and the wrath of the empire. One voice carried above the crowd. An old farmer with calloused hands shouted, "We have given them our gold, our sons, our sweat, no more. If Traoré stands, we stand. If Traoré falls, we fall with him." It was this unity, this bond between the leader and his people that shook America and France more than any decree. For history has shown, When the people and their leader march together, no empire can prevail. And the echo spread beyond Burkina Faso's borders. In Ghana, a nation long known for its gold, the government took bold steps to keep reserves at home. Traore praised them, declaring, "Independence without economic control is an illusion." Ghana stood shoulder to shoulder with Burkina Faso, signaling that the struggle was won. In Uganda, the fight took form in coffee. No longer would Ugandan farmers ship raw beans to Europe, only to see them branded and sold at 1,000% profit. Instead, roasting, packaging, and exporting would be done at home. Jobs for Ugandans, wealth for Uganda, dignity for Africa. In Gabon, it was timber. Once forests were cut down and shipped away as cheap logs, only to return as luxury furniture. But the export of raw logs was banned, forcing industries to rise locally. Gabon's defiance became another brick in Africa's fortress of sovereignty. And Traore reminded his people, if Gabon can keep its timber, then Burkina Faso can keep its cotton. If Uganda can keep its coffee, then Niger can keep its uranium. This is not one nation's fight. It is Africa's awakening. By the time these nations took their stand, the West felt the squeeze. Supply chains strained, profits dwindled, markets shook. American corporations, long accustomed to cheap African labor and limitless extraction, now faced an unfamiliar reality: negotiation, resistance, sovereignty. Washington accused Traore of destabilizing Africa, but Africans themselves knew the truth. He was stabilizing it by ending centuries of plunder. The story of this first chapter is simple yet powerful. From gold to coffee to timber, 3 nations raised their voices. But it was Burkina Faso that lit the match. And now, with the fire spreading, the question grows: what happens when this defiance reaches the uranium fields of Niger, the lifeblood of France's nuclear empire?
Brothers and sisters, the fire that began in Ouagadougou has now become a flame sweeping across the entire African continent. What started as the bold defiance of one young captain has grown into a continental call for freedom. Burkina Faso may be small on the world map, but its courage has made it larger than life. Its message is no longer contained within its borders. It is echoing from Ghana to Mali, from Uganda to Gabon, from the Congo to Zimbabwe. And everywhere, the people are awakening. For decades, the West built its wealth on Africa's suffering. Gold stolen from our soil built the banks of Europe. Uranium taken from Niger powered the lights of Paris, while villages in Niger remained in darkness. Cocoa from Ivory Coast sweetened the tables of Europe, while African children went to bed hungry. Oil from Nigeria filled the cars of the West, while ordinary Nigerians lived in poverty. They told us it was trade. They told us it was partnership. But it was never partnership. It was slavery wearing a mask. It was theft disguised as diplomacy. And for too long, Africa's leaders bowed their heads. But now, the Sahel Alliance has risen. 10 nations have declared enough is enough. In Ghana, leaders keep their gold reserves at home. In Uganda, farmers roast, package, and export their own coffee, refusing to sell it raw for Europe's profit. In Gabon, timber is no longer shipped as cheap logs, but processed at home, creating jobs and wealth for its people. In Niger, uranium is no longer handed freely to France, but restricted to serve the nation first. In Zimbabwe, raw chrome exports are banned, forcing industries to rise locally. Across Africa, the same pattern repeats, a continent learning to say no. The reaction from the West has been panic. In Paris, politicians warn of energy catastrophe as Niger restricts uranium exports. In Washington, think tanks scramble, plotting sanctions, threats, and propaganda. Western media scream headlines of chaos, labeling African leaders as reckless, dictators, or puppets of Moscow and Beijing. But the truth cannot be hidden anymore. Africa is not trading one master for another. Africa is choosing itself. Ibrahim Traoré's words made it clear. We stand with no empire. We welcome cooperation, but not domination. Our loyalty is to Africa. These words cut deeper than any weapon because for centuries, the West depended on African silence. But now, that silence is broken. In Ouagadougou, the people march as one. Mothers raise their children to the sky, promising they will never kneel to America or France. Young men paint murals of Sankara and Traore side by side with the words, "Our leaders do not bow." Churches ring their bells, mosques echo with prayers, the streets roar with chants of sovereignty and freedom. The people themselves have become the shield. Washington and Paris do not fear armies. They fear the unstoppable force of ordinary people rising together. And in Burkina Faso, when rumors spread of another Western-backed plot, the people did not wait for orders. They flooded the streets, declaring, "If you come for Traore, you must pass through us." This is not politics. This is not mere protest. This is the rebirth of Africa's soul. Across the continent, nations watch and follow. From Dar es Salaam to Cairo, from Cape Town to Mogadishu, voices rise with the same demand: Africa must rise. This is not the Africa of silence. This is not the Africa of submission. This is the Africa of fire, of dignity, of resurrection. For the first time in centuries, Europe and America tremble not because of armies, but because of the choices of African farmers, miners, and workers who refuse to bow. Even the diaspora has joined this awakening. In churches in Atlanta, in mosques in London, in community halls in Paris, African voices rise in unity. Hashtags like New Africa, Africa Rise, and the Sahel Alliance flood social media, linking the sons and daughters of the continent abroad with their homeland. The message is the same everywhere. This is our time. Ibrahim Traoré, once dismissed as a young soldier of a small nation, has become the voice of a continent. He carries the torch of Thomas Sankara, but this time the shield is the people themselves. No bullet, no sanction, no propaganda can sever that bond. And with every passing day, the fire spreads further, shaking the old empires to their core. But the question remains, what comes next? America has already begun tightening its grip with sanctions, freezing aid, and threatening punishments. They believe hunger will break Africa. They believe hardship will force submission. But as one young student in Ouagadougou declared, hunger under freedom is better than feasting under slavery. These are not the words of weakness. These are the words of a people who have found their strength. Brothers and sisters, the hour has come. Africa is no longer begging for dignity. It is taking it. The chains of aid and debt are breaking. The illusions of partnership are collapsing. From Burkina Faso's gold to Niger's uranium, from Uganda's coffee to Gabon's timber, from Zimbabwe's chrome to Ghana's reserves, Africa is reclaiming its destiny. The West thought it was facing one small nation, but in truth, it is facing the rebirth of an entire continent. The rebirth of Africa. And no empire on earth can stop it. So now I ask you, if you believe in this awakening, type New Africa. If you believe Africa must rise together, type Africa Rise. If you believe the chains are breaking forever, type It's Time for Africa. Share this message, stand with Burkina Faso, stand with Africa, stand with the spirit of Sankara reborn. And remember these words: Washington may tremble, Paris may shake, but Africa will never kneel again. This is not just politics. This is not just resistance. This is the dawn of a new Africa. And no empire on earth can stop it.